This week on Across the Arrowverse, part 2 of our conversation on Crisis on Infinite Earths. To Crisis, to Infinite. I thought about it beforehand. Hi, welcome to Across the Arrowverse. I'm Matthew Vose.
And I'm Catherine Vose.
So, we got a lot more into talking about Crisis on Infinite Earths than we thought we might.
Well, it's an awesome crossover.
It's an awesome crossover. There's a lot of content, a lot to dig into.
Yeah, and so many really great characters.
Absolutely. So we got through hours 1, 2, and 3 on the last episode. If you've not listened to them, go and listen to them.
We didn't talk for quite 3 hours.
We didn't talk for 3 hours, but we went through the first 3 hours of Crisis. Thanks, Catherine. And now we're going to do parts 4 and 5.
Yeah.
So part 4 was the Arrow episode. Any initial things coming into the conversation? Anything we didn't touch on last time that occurred to you?
What about the first 3?
Yeah.
Nothing major, although I may refer back. I mean,
Okay.
given that we referred forward
Yeah,
a lot
true,
during the
true.
first 3, I may very well refer back in the 4 and 5.
So the Arrow episode, Hour 4, was quite a big episode, both for Arrow
Yep.
and for the Crisis. And in some ways that feels very fair to the original comics, because it did have this big sort of resolution thing and then a bit of a continuation as well. So they're sort of continuing that trend, which I dig.
Yep.
What do you have as notes? What do you want to talk about from Hour 4?
So we're starting off at Vanishing Point,
Yes.
but we've got Lex there
Yes.
as well. And I think Arrow 4, one of the things I've really enjoyed is Lex cooperating when he wants to,
Mm-hmm.
not cooperating when he wants to, generally being Lex, but also being super cool.
Yeah.
Like, I think the way they have portrayed, I mean, I enjoyed how they did Lex in Supergirl last season,
Yeah, definitely.
but I enjoyed this Lex even more.
Okay.
I mean, I know it's the same Lex, but somehow this is entrepreneur Lex. This is not Lex with his arsenal of money and everything behind him.
Yeah.
This is Lex using his wits and coming out to a certain extent on top.
Strip away everything else and what's left.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
nice.
what's left is pretty good.
Yeah.
You know.
Is that down to writing and performance? I mean, which stands out well to you? Because we do love John Cryer in this part, so...
Yes, I mean, I think they have given him a strong story, but it's a strong story that could only have been delivered by an actor of the quality of John Cryer.
Right, okay.
You know, so possibly they've been able to give him this story because of how good he's been previously.
Yep, fair. Okay.
But, yeah.
Right.
And during watching this, we both finally realised that he was a manly men. Like, how is that possible?
Yeah.
Like,
so different. It's great. And, you know, I loved him in Supergirl where he got to do big, bombastic evil
yes.
that we'd never really seen before, and it was fun.
Yeah.
So the way he was doing it, and in this, they still had that. It was still every line he had to be something about being evil or not wanting to be good, but it was still an interesting character, like you say, helping them out or trying to do the right thing, but in a way that suited his own ends.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's. I think it's a control thing. It's just that his control freak tendencies need him to be like the emperor of the universe,
Yeah.
as opposed to just controlling his immediate environment. And but I just thought it was really interesting how like he was working with the paragon of humanity.
Yep.
You know, cooperate. I mean, being a bit stroppy, but cooperating and working together because he saw it as something that would suit his ends. And then they were on Mar-Novu's world, and he was like, Maltus. And he was like, right, I'm gone now. Zap, zip.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was awesome. And Lex fighting with the gang was a very cool moment.
Fighting alongside.
Yeah, that was a very cool moment. Again, you know, cooperating and fighting with them because, you know, the alternative was dying.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah.
I liked that on the Vanishing Point Barry comes out of the Speed Force, and it turns out he's been gone 2 months. There's about 5-6 weeks between the last episode and this episode, so they are still keeping it somewhat in real time.
Yeah.
Which is, I think I prefer that in my TV and movies to move like that. That was nice.
I did have one ponderance. What were they eating in The Vanishing Point?
Best not to ask.
Fair enough.
Superman's cape.
Superhero fairy dust.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, fair enough.
Time has no meaning there. Do you actually get older? Oh, well, his beard grew, so time must have a meaning there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but that I was just like...
Yeah.
It's worse than lockdown, isn't it? So a lot of Lex comments, to be honest.
Right, okay.
What are your thoughts on Lex? I think you enjoyed Lex as much as me.
Yes, but... I think it almost gets to being one note in this episode, but it is just one episode, so it's not so bad. Like, if they then continued this in the next one of... A little bit like we saw with Wentworth Miller and Mick Rory, whose actor's name I can never remember, but in those early legend things of like, I can't believe I'm working with the good guys. Oh, it's like, okay, but you are. So let's find another joke to make here. But they didn't do it too much. Like I said, because it was restricted to this one episode, every so often, fine. Yeah.
So, I've got one or two other notes, but not an awful lot more.
Okay.
But given that almost all of my notes on this episode are about Lex Luthor, do you feel this was an Arrow episode, or do you think this was a Lex Luthor episode?
This was an Arrow episode.
Sell me on this. Why was this an Arrow episode rather than a Lex Luthor episode?
So this is the episode where Stephen Amell, Oliver Queen, the Arrow, turns up as something else. He comes in as the Spectre, and he starts telling them what he can do as a Spectre and what he needs them to do. He takes them into the Speed Force. You get the appalling sequence where they're attacked by the Anti-Monitor. It was almost laughable. There's these flashes of the Anti-Monitor and then something that's spread throughout the Time Force. But them being spread throughout the Speed Force and the fact it's the Green Arrow stroke Spectre who is keeping them in his sort of, connections with the world. We talked on our Arrow episode about the fact that Arrow was going on a victory lap of its early seasons. This episode was a lap of some of the most famous scenes from Arrow. And putting characters in them to show us where Arrow was. So we saw him and Ray fighting. It's like, yeah, Ray was in this series, and...
Yes, because Ray was his rival for Felicity's love, wasn't
exactly.
he?
Wow, and that's, a big difference for both characters and the series there. You see the death of Sarah.
Yeah.
And what that did to Earth 1 Laurel at the time. You saw him and Supergirl not starting out as allies, and they did a proper lap of famous scenes from Arrow. And it was interesting reading that one of the things they wanted to do was to have one of the scenes be, I think the scene that Kate came into to actually be his fight with John from Series 6, where they actually came to blows.
Right.
But the producers said, no, let's go for something older, because Season 6 is so recent, treading recent ground. And I liked the use of Ray in that scene. So
yes.
Yeah, this was an episode about Arrow's past, and then coming to what he could be in the future, and ending with where it ends with the Arrow.
Yes.
That he dies again.
And he's properly dead now, right?
I don't know. I don't know that you can kill the Spectre. Because part of the point is he's already dead.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting to see, because we've still got 2 episodes of Arrow to go.
Yes.
I don't think that's a question I can answer.
Fair enough.
For me, Arrow's episode is all about Oliver becoming someone else, something else. Like, it is, I said this last time, but it is delivering on the promise that they've been making for years.
Yeah.
And I like it. I'm really into this idea.
Yeah.
I don't think they had it in mind early on. I think they're just, a little bit like we saw with Endgame, they're picking up stuff in the past and going, oh, what if we did this? That would be quite a nice...
Well, I imagine they would have had no idea that all of this would carry on for so long early on. Because Arrow could have been a flop. It could have been a one-season wonder.
Yeah.
But, yes.
It could have been a 4 or 5 seasons. There were times in Arrow they could have just stopped it.
Yes.
But
put it out of its misery.
This is probably a conversation once we get to the end of Arrow, whether it's been worth getting through 8 seasons of it. But yeah, so there's that fact, and the fact that it is so heavy on Arrow's history.
Yes.
Using Barry's powers. So
that's cool. I mean, I know I stopped watching the series, but it doesn't mean I don't like the character Arrow, and
character Amel.
It doesn't mean I don't like the character of Arrow or the portrayal of Arrow that Stephen Amell does. I think both are good things. Yeah, I
like the character, like the portrayal.
I think their plot lines got a little bit too...
Yeah, I don't think they ever developed the character as far as to have the nuance that it could have.
Yes.
I will compare this to a show that I love, like Angel, and I think Angel as a character had a lot of depth and differences. I don't think they ever got there with Oliver Queen.
No. And I think his character did develop, but it was a little heavy-handed at times.
Yeah, it didn't have that depth. It went from being... a young vigilante fighting everyone to working in a team and being a bit more of a leader and so on, but without the depth of he could still go back to that and pawn it when he needs to.
Well, it was interesting to me seeing him going back to being a grumpy loner.
Right.
In this last season of Arrow, as opposed to the suave, besuited politician, father, husband, That's,
okay.
So I've written down here that this was an ending worthy of Arrow, by which I mean worthy of Arrow the character, rather than the tortuous last few seasons.
Yeah, would you have taken this if this was the finale of Arrow?
Yes.
I think I would have.
And I'm a little nervous about the fact there's 2 more seasons.
Yeah.
I'm. And do you know what I'm nervous about? Although it might work out well. Are these last 2 episodes of Arrow essentially feature-length adverts for the spin-off shows that they're about to produce?
Well, I think it might be a bit of both. A little column A and a little column B.
Fair enough. What else have I got down here? Well, I can't remember why I wrote this, but I've written, Mar Novu equals a numpty.
Well, I mean, the stuff we see, my towering ambition, and I want to go back to the beginning of the... It was this episode that has all that, wasn't it? And it was just... Okay.
And it's like, what you're going to do is going to destroy the universe. Oh, but it's been my lifetime's ambition.
But I must do it. Yeah, oh, come on, lad. Yeah, it didn't. Malthus, I mentioned the planet because it is important in the DC canon. You've not seen Green Lantern, have you? So, the Green Lantern Corps are ruled over by guardians, ancient beings. Malthus is the planet they come from.
Okay.
So, and it's interesting looking up the differences to the Crisis on Infinite Earths original comics, because what they've done is they've incorporated into the Monitor's character. The Monitor was a separate character to someone else who was trying to view the origins of the universe and see how it started, and his experiment caused these things to happen. So they've sort of incorporated 2 characters there. I think it works better that it is one character. That this is the Monitor's... Like you say, it would have been good to have known, okay, so how did he get these powers?
Yeah.
What in this has caused him to become this? If it is just by being at the beginning of the universe, he incorporated certain powers, and that maybe even spawned the Anti-Monitor or something.
Yeah.
But I think it works better to be him as a mortal as well as a god.
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah. I just think there's a lot of explanation missing there.
Yeah.
I mean, although, do you know what? There was a lot of narrative in there. If they were going to cut out anything, I can live with them having just
this is the sort of hand-wavy meta stuff that we can headcanon. Like, he just got these powers. The Anti-Monitor has his powers, but in opposite. Fine. Great.
C'est la vie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would like to talk about from episode 4 that we have not yet covered?
The filming style of those sequences, the sequences in the Speed Force, that when people were talking, they were talking down the barrel of the camera.
Yeah.
And talking almost at us as an audience. And they were kept so, where possible, so centre in the frame. It really made it feel like an alien world. Like, we talked about this with a film we watched recently, using different filming styles to make a place feel different.
Yeah.
This really felt unusual and stand out from other things we had. So you got a sense of, we're in the Speed Force, but a different type of Speed Force. And I liked that. It really made it memorable to me. I think this is why it stood out quite so much compared to the other episodes, because they did stuff that was very cool. And then I think the conclusion of it was very DC. Giant fight with lots of bad guys. And then a giant beam of light and two beams going towards each other. And this is what DC does in all its movies, and it's very disappointing when it does.
Yeah.
But also it's the style that they go to, so, you know.
I guess it's the magic user's version of the kickiest kick.
Yes, yeah.
You know, and it is a very obvious, but, you know, it's a very easily understandable visualization of two magic users pitting their powers against each other.
Yeah.
And who's winning and losing.
Yeah. So...
But yes, it is a little bit like, oh, I've seen this before.
Absolutely, yeah. But the fight was fine. It was nice having all those people there doing their thing. That was quite fun. And then everything gets resolved at the end. And we move into hour 5. So is that all your notes for hour 4?
That is all my notes for hour 4.
It's really interesting that it didn't stand out as much to you.
No.
That like, for me, this was, wow, this is delivering on so much setup in a very nice way.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit of paragons. Because I'm not sure that's a thing from the original text.
Yep.
Actually mandating them as 7 different paragons in that way, or having 7 paragons.
Yeah.
And it feels arbitrary.
Well, I don't think they lent into it enough to make it worthwhile.
Yeah. It could have just been, we're identifying the strongest heroes, and you know, he is strong because of his belief in humanity and his goodwill inherent in him.
Yeah.
And she is strong because she is the bravest among you. And she is strong because she's she has the most hope and optimism of all of you.
Yeah.
Like, that would have been fine. That would have absolutely been fine. I can't remember what Barry was the paragon of.
Love.
Was it love?
Yeah, because
Really?
he was being... Yeah, because he was being sloppy with Iris.
Well,
Iris. Not the Irish.
Not the Irish. So maybe that's the thing that you'd say, but I would have just been fine if they talked about it in terms of the strengths of the characters.
It was fine with it. It would have been fine without it.
Yeah.
I don't think it was obnoxious enough to have irritated me.
No.
But equally, I don't feel that they lent into it to make that a central tenet of the plot, other than the way of doing eeny, meeny, miny, mo, you're the 7 that get to go into the vanishing point.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. It felt like there should have been more of a reason why these people. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
Hour 5. The Legends of Tomorrow. So this is a quasi standalone episode of Legends, as I understand it.
Yeah.
But also it does some Legends setup stuff.
Yeah.
But it doesn't start all about the Legends.
No.
It starts with Supergirl facing off with a meta from Flash's TV series.
Yeah.
What did you think of Hour 5?
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah?
And I was really quite excited by the end.
Okay.
I love the whole idea of shaking the snow globe and and keeping what we love.
Yep.
And then maybe going forward in a way that's potentially even more exciting and interesting.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that they've drawn the lines to some of the other DC vehicles.
It's from a production standpoint, it's so clever. Like this, it really does astound me how clever this is. So the point of the original Crisis on Infinite Earths, there had been crossovers before, but nothing like this. This ended DC continuity as we knew it.
Right.
It had gotten so convoluted of, there's this Superman, there's Alexander Luthor, there's Lex Luthor, there's Kal-El, that's just the letter L at the end, who's a different Superman. You know, it was complicated for people to follow the thing. So this was, we're going to end all that, we're going to rewrite some of our characters, and we're going to have one Earth Prime. Yeah. No multiverse, no multiple Earths, none of that. And then, at some point later, they then do Infinite Crisis, where everything gets split out into a multiverse again, because it turns out you need the multiverse.
Right.
To be able to do interesting stories. Fine. But what they didn't need to simplify the canon and the continuity. That was not the point of this crisis. The point was the crossover.
Yeah.
So they have combined the bits that were complicated, such as having Supergirl on a different Earth to everyone else, and having Black Lightning on a different Earth to everyone else. But the other shows, like you say, the upcoming Stargirl show, the Swamp Thing, the Titans, all the different ones, they still have their own things. They are made by different companies on different networks with different production things behind them. And at some point they might cross over, but we're not planning to cross them over because we're saying our Earth Prime heroes do not know there's a multiverse anymore.
No.
As far as they're concerned, everything's been consolidated to one.
Yes.
And we can explore it if we ever want to again.
But we know, secretly, that there is a multiverse.
Exactly. And it means that we don't have to ask questions anymore of like, so this new HBO Batman show, if there ever came, how does that fit into the wider DC thing on other channels and so on? It doesn't matter. It's a different Earth. Stop asking questions.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Love it.
Really clever. Really clever.
And I would assume it means they can dive into DC history a little bit more easily and say, right, we've consolidated all. So, like that Birds of Prey show and the old Superman films and the old Batman films, if we wanted to reference them, if we wanted to have characters from them or actors from them, we could do something even more interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Now, one thought I had was, do we now have 2 Supermen on this one Earth? Because we did get a shot of Ray Palmer Superman at the end of it as well.
On a different Earth.
So is he on a different Earth?
Yes.
He's not on Earth Prime.
Absolutely. But
right.
and the point of that shot was it's because he's in the Christopher Reeve continuity.
Okay.
So it's the Christopher Reeve films and Superman Returns. And the point of that shot was he's back in the red and yellow S shield, the House of L shield. Whereas in the Kingdom Come continuity he was in a yellow and black shield.
Okay.
To represent the sort of the darkness, but the hope still cuts through the night, that kind of thing.
Right, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, but so he's not going to come back?
Not expected to.
Not necessarily.
But a very nice way to use him.
Yeah. No, I think it was. I think it was very cute.
I'm expecting easier crossovers and maybe more slight crossovers. I don't see that we're going to have every few episodes Supergirl turns up in Batwoman and Flash turns up in Black Lightning or something. I don't see we're going to do that, but I could imagine them doing more, a villain goes from episode to episode maybe, if they're doing a crossover like that. Or John Diggle rocks up in something, or
I agree.
Minor characters.
I agree, and I think sometimes we've had seasons where like Supergirl's facing down this dreadful evil, and you're like, why is she not asking her mates for help?
Exactly,
and I think that's going to be even more unbelievable.
Yeah,
if they're all on the same, like if the stupid Leviathan plot carries on in Supergirl, which it very well might. I mean, surely they've not done all that setup to then throw it away.
Yep.
Well, the other guys are on this Earth now as well.
Yeah.
So surely, to a certain extent, they'd get involved.
Hey, Barry, can you just run everywhere on Earth and look for things that say Leviathan and have this symbol on them? Yeah,
So I do hope they use, maybe not too heavy-handedly. We don't want effectively 3 or 4 separate series that are the same series.
Absolutely. Well,
that would be too much, But I think I would have issues if they tried to pretend the others didn't exist for most of the rest of their seasons.
Agreed. Should we talk the future in a minute?
Yes.
Should we talk the episode first?
Yep.
This felt like a Legends episode.
Yeah, Bebo.
The introduction of Bebo, some of the silliness around, when they defeated Bebo and that random quasi-villain hero, as it turns out, it's one of those things they've dug into their depths of people and brought up someone interesting. The silliness of offering champagne to Mick and him going, "What is this? It's alcohol." Okay.
Yeah.
That sort of thing absolutely felt like a Legends episode.
Yeah.
The glee of Kara seeing Kate arrive.
Oh, so nice.
Again, feels more suited to a Legends episode. That sort of random moments of asides.
Can we watch this episode again?
Yeah.
Like, talking about it, it's just made me go, oh yeah, there were so many things that made me happy.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what else? What else is on your notes that you wanted to pick up from it?
Well, it just all made me happy. I enjoy the Legend. I enjoy Legends when Legends are on form. I enjoy it so much, like the joy and the effervescence. I love that portrayal of Supergirl that she does when Supergirl's just, uncynical and just open and happy. I don't know. I think there was a lot in it to enjoy. I love the idea that they've now got this gang with their round table.
Okay. Yep.
I enjoyed that.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't have any more notes.
Okay. Oh, you remind me of the sort of slight continuing thing of it's a crossover, but we don't want the other legends involved because it just gets weird with too many people. So, continuing that as a bit of a gag is quite nice because, yeah, you can bring in Arrow and Flash and Supergirl and Batwoman, and all of the legends is suddenly quite a group.
Yeah.
So, yeah, only bringing one or two of them works.
Absolutely.
The continuing use of Ray Palmer is the main one, because, again, he's been across multiple shows, so that's fine. The use of him and Roy... Is it Roy? No. The new guy, the Paragon of Humanity. I forgot his name now. The use of them to make tech to be able to do something together worked very well.
Yeah.
Shrinking the Monitor down, like the Monitor becoming giant as his sort of second act comeback thing, a callback to the comic.
Yeah.
That is absolutely what happens. He finds a way back. I think maybe through Harbinger. It's gone now. It is a thing. This is the other way DC do stuff. Oh, and now he's giant. We have to take him down. And by becoming giant, he becomes stupid. I always wish they didn't do that.
Yeah.
If you become giant, make them still really smart. That would be interesting. So John gets knocked down. Superman gets grabbed and starts to be crushed. And Supergirl flies at the Monitor, the Anti-Monitor, to try to destroy him herself.
Yeah, with an implication that it's a suicide mission.
Supergirl dies in Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Oh, really?
You remember, and I had to pull myself back. I suddenly remembered this. I had to pull myself back on the last one. I talked about the shot of her carrying Superman's cape.
Yes.
Is a shot from Crisis on Infinite Earths of Superman carrying a dead Supergirl.
Right.
So there's a nice crossover there, a mix-up there. But there was absolutely an implication there that Supergirl was about to die. Because this is the thing. The Flash dies, the Spectre dies, and Supergirl dies. It is big, big hero deaths.
Yeah.
They've killed a Flash, they've killed the Spectre, and that would have been the third thing. And it felt like all the world they were going to do something.
Yeah.
And I really, really like it. Like, that is something for people like me, who are, properly into it and know the references. So... yeah, do it and then subvert it.
Yeah.
And the fact they subverted it just made me so happy.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have been gutted if they'd killed Kara.
Yeah, absolutely. And they couldn't have.
But they couldn't. You can't have a show called Supergirl with no Supergirl.
Exactly, yeah. So just before we move on to talk about the round table at the end and the future, can we talk about one thing that I'd forgotten from the Arrow episode?
Okay.
Hour 4. There was a moment in this episode where I jumped out of my chair and screamed.
There was.
Because Ezra Miller showed up.
Yeah.
And I like, it turns out this had been talked about.
Okay.
So I think people knew, but it also hadn't been highly publicised. I cannot believe they went there and got that deal done.
They must have been talking to a lot of different property owners for a very long time, because there's a lot of stuff they got done in this crossover that would have been quite unthinkable 4 or 5 years ago.
Apparently this was one of the last things that was filmed. This was the Flash crew filming this in an Arrow episode. Right. And apparently there were some crossovers with the crew as well to help them film in the right style for their characters. But mostly it was like the Arrow crew filming the Arrow episode, for instance. Yeah. But this was done by the Flash people. They got him in for a day to do this bit of filming. It's outstanding that they did this. Yes. And it's great that it's Ezra Miller. Ezra Miller's been cancelled recently, so that's a shame. Because he's made statements that he shouldn't have made. But, fine. If it'd been Cyborg, a lot of people would have been, who is this? If it'd been another Superman, it would have been a bit much. It wouldn't have been Ben Affleck.
No.
And I don't think it could have been Gal Gadot, because this is also not a world where we've seen Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
We've mentioned Themyscira, and that's the closest we've ever come.
But yeah, we've got no Wonder Woman in this at all so far.
But it is famous that there are 2 Flashes on TV and movies at the moment, and they are done so differently. Yeah. The fact they reference each other's suits and talk about how cool each other's suit is great. Ezra Miller doesn't know the name Flash, because in the films he's been in, no one has used the name Flash. He is not yet called the Flash.
Oh, interesting.
And so they make a point of him going like, Flash? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And just a few things like that. It's like they've actually paid real attention to this writing, just rather than the fan service moment. And this was a fan service moment. Yeah. You could have cut this and we wouldn't have noticed.
Yeah, and so if they'd not got the deal done...
No one minds. but outstanding.
Yeah.
Like, in this big crossover, yes. And apparently there was a whole thing of Ezra Miller said he'd be up for it, but then they went to Grant Gustin, and Grant Gustin had to think about it for a minute and just make sure that everyone was on board and it was done in the right way. Because, yes, it could utterly have changed his character as the lesser character, but I don't think they did that. I think they absolutely made them equal.
I agree. Because, there is a risk of being shown up.
Mm-hmm.
Not shown, but, like being...
Ezra Miller's a star.
Yeah,
whether he's cancelled or not,
Yeah. But they played him as a character, as a joie de vivre.
Yep.
Flash.
Mm-hmm.
It worked. It was really good.
Yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah.
So, we end up in the abandoned Stars Lab experimental hangar that they'd used before, which is styled after the Hall of Justice from an old program.
Right.
With them forming they have a memorial for Oliver.
Yep.
Which was very nicely done and appropriate.
Yep, absolutely.
I think, that's the thing that makes you think, wow, Oliver's actually dead.
Yeah, Oliver's,
whether the Spectre's dead is another thing.
Yes.
So, and then they have a round table. The round table is an established thing.
Yeah.
Everyone has a seat at the table. They still have a Green Arrow seat, which leans into someone will be sitting there in the future. And they all have a nice moment around the table, and then they're interrupted by the laughter of a monkey called Gleek. The Hall of Justice is from the Super Friends program.
Right.
In that style, looking that way.
Yeah.
Gleek and the Wonder Twins are from the Super Friends series.
The Wonder Twins.
The Wonder, again, other random superheroes that were invented for it, with twins who, when they combine, they have superpowers. Fine. And they have this Snarf, Orko, whatever the thing from He-Man was called. Was it Orko and He-Man? And Snarf from Thundercats. The sort of comic sidekick.
Yeah.
In the same way, during that period. Scooby-Doo, Superman had a dog, Batman had a dog.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. They're leaning into some of their history stuff, but I do love all those people around the table. For it to be a lineup that doesn't have a Batman and a Superman and a Wonder Woman or a Green Lantern, but does have Black Lightning and Supergirl and Flash
Batwoman
and a Batwoman. Yeah, it's a really interesting lineup around that table.
Absolutely.
And I'm interested to see how they interact and do use each other in stories.
And it gives them the freedom to do more interesting things than it would do if it was just the core traditional characters.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact of having that table does make it feel a little bit like maybe they will come together. Maybe there will even be. They will stop one or two of the series and have a modern Super Friends type series that sees some of them coming together and occasionally has a Flash crossover or something. I doubt it, but...
I am really interested to see where it's going. I'm really excited. I mean, we'll see how the rest of the seasons end, given current circumstances, but I'm really excited to see what direction they're going in.
Yep.
Especially as we're now in a world where Lex Luthor is purportedly a good... he's just won the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah.
He's not in prison.
So this was the next conversation I wanted to move to. We didn't see how it affected Flash's world. Mm-hmm. I think. Flash's series.
Yeah.
We didn't see, although we know Vibe is back.
Yeah.
Seems to be the only thing. We didn't see how it affected Batwoman.
Yeah.
We haven't seen how it affected Arrow.
Yeah.
We did see how it affected Supergirl.
Alex and Supergirl, yeah.
And the implication that Lex and Lena are incredibly good people who run the DEO now.
Yeah. And own the DEO. So I think this is interesting. The DEO was a governmental organisation before Crisis. It is now a corporate.
Yeah.
That's a different spin.
Yeah. Really interesting to see what's going to come there. And that's a great setup, whether it is that they are now both properly evil.
Yep.
But keeping it hidden under, corporate machinations. We saw that Superman now has 2 children.
Yes.
And Superman did talk about wanting 2 children, so that's fine. And we saw that the Diggles now have 2 children.
Yeah.
Sarah's now back.
Yeah.
Which I like.
Yes.
That is a very, very cute thing. They've kept the one that we've seen from the future.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting to see, do we have any more Arrow future episodes, future flash forwards, something like that? Do we see anything more about them now?
Good stuff. I feel satisfied.
Right.
I was looking forward to this crossover, And for me, I think it's delivered, and it's left with me with a renewed energy and interest in carrying on with these seasons.
Yeah. I don't want any of these to finish now. I know we've got 2 episodes of Arrow left, so we can finish them. But I want to see what they do in this universe in the future. And I'm not bothered about them introducing new series, although it does look like they will. But
yeah, I mean, my only concern about that is there are only so many hours in the day.
Well, absolutely. Where do they go from here? If we're saying...
Where do we go from here?
If we're saying there is going to be a crossover in the next season, you know...
How do you trump that?
Exactly.
Oh, I think they might... I don't know that they'll have a crossover in the same way in the next season.
Right.
I think they might explore the continuous mini... interactions that they have the possibilities for. Because, I mean, they've been gearing up for this for a few years.
Yeah, good 2-3 years now at least.
And I think if they tried to top it year on year on year, they'd be setting themselves up to failure.
Yeah.
So I think they would be better to take a step back rather than focus on another big crossover for next year. Focus on making everything linked together more naturally.
Okay.
For the next couple of years, and build us up to another big climax in maybe 3 years' time.
Right. Yeah, I can see them. I really like that idea of saying, it's a villain who moves from show to show, 4 episodes here, 4 episodes here, 4 episodes here, with maybe one new character following that villain and trying to stop them or something. And yeah. That I would like that. That would be nice. Or different pieces of a larger plot.
Yes.
Not crossovers, but plots that sort of tie into each other.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to play it carefully, because if you do have someone that's wedded to one series, but doesn't really have a great interest in, you don't want to alienate your Soul series viewers.
Absolutely.
But I'd like them to flow in and out more frequently.
Yeah, very much. I want more musical episodes, to be honest with you. Like, I'm fairly sure Ruby Rose is able... In fact, she's in a Pitch Perfect movie. Ruby Rose can sing.
Of course she was, wasn't she? Yeah.
And Ruby Rose can not talk, as she did in John Wick 2. Wow. So she's got a whole range of things. Yeah. There are good options for something like that to happen again in the future. It's going to be really interesting to see, because there are good options, but it's so hard to make happen. The fact they have a showrunner just for these 5 episodes. And yeah. No, I'm glad with how it came out. It was really good by the end of it. Yeah, great. So I think we're going to finish off Arrow.
Yep.
Is the next easy one for us to do.
Yep.
And then we'll try to... Oh, it's so difficult, dear listener, for us to know what to do, because we're going to have a few more episodes of each series, but I think each series is not going to finish their season-long arcs. So I might try to see how long they go for, and then we just do as many as we can on each as our next episodes.
I think
we'll see.
So.
There might even be a little break now. As we let everything catch up and then see how it pans out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep watching, keep your eyes out for episodes.
Yep. But for now, into the Arrowverse.
So that wraps us up for another week. If you have thoughts, questions or comments, you can use the hashtag ATAV on Twitter. Or you can find us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram as Eloquent Gushing. If you want to help support us, please check out our Patreon page where you can get access to exclusive content across all our shows. Go to patreon.com/eloquentgushing. And don't forget to visit the homepage, eloquentgushing.com, where you can find the other shows across the network and subscribe to our weekly newsletter with all the goings on. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you across the Arrowverse.
Across the Arrowverse is an Eloquent Gushing production. For more shows you'll love, please visit eloquentgushing.com.